right, peace and blessings, family. It's another episode of the Conscious Couple Podcast. I'm Mike Jones.
And I'm Cheryl Jones, and this is where you come to have healthy conversations for the conscious mind.
That's right, family. Just a little bit about Cheryl and myself. We're personal trainers, health coaches, and nutritionists. We're also entrepreneurs. We have the largest pole fitness studio right here in Phoenix, Arizona called Purple Palace Pole Studio. We also have a national fitness brand called Rhythm Rumble Workout, as well as a nutrition line called Body Natural Nutrients. We're going to put all the links in the description below for anyone who wants more information on our businesses.
And if you're just tuning in for the first time to the Conscious Couple Podcast, I just want to give you a little backdrop about why we created it and what it's for. So one of the things that we've observed as being in the people business and being personal trainers for so many years is that everything really boils down to relationships, right? In our life. The healthier your relationships, the more quality of life you will have.
Yes.
And when we talk about relationships, we're not just talking about a relationship with, an intimate relationship or a relationship with a spouse. We're referring to every relationship in your life, whether it's with your kids, your family, a coworker, yourself, right? But relationships are everything. And they really determine, how we show up in the world for each other as well as for ourselves, right?
That's right.
But the thing is that relationships do require work, right? And the willingness to have a dialogue and communication.
Yes.
So this is why we created the podcast, so that people have a safe space to come and just exchange, and talk about things that are not always comfortable,
right? Right.
But are always necessary,
right?
Necessary for our connection, necessary for our healing. So that's why we're here. That's why you're here, and
it just allows us to grow and mature when it comes to our communication. Many of us haven't learned to communicate effectively, and I think there really needs to be more education on that, and I think that could help us overall. But what we're doing here is part of that.
I think it's really the will. I think really honestly, Michael, it's the willingness. First of all, there needs to be a space.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
To do that. In a conscious, loving way.
Right.
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 And then there has to be the will to want to show up. Right. And so we're showing up. You're showing up. And that's I think that's a big part of it. So I agree with you. I'm just adding on, right? So today's topic is it's not necessarily comfortable for some, but it's definitely a necessary topic for everyone.
Right.
And today's topic is about Black history, sugar addictions, and our health, right? So one of the things, Michael, that you hear me say a lot is that it's very difficult for us to understand where we are if we don't know where we've been. Why I think this is really important when it comes to Black people, I mean everyone, but Black people in particular, because Black people, we have a very unique history, right?
Yes.
We are the only group of people in the world that's been subjected to chattel slavery, which I refer to as one of the greatest crimes against humanity. So my initial question to you is, do you agree with that claim?
Absolutely, I agree. I mean, the brutality of chattel slavery was just, unmatched,
unprecedented,
unprecedented,
and
unmatched throughout history.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll quote Marcus Garvey where he said, people without a culture is like a tree without roots, and there's no, plainer way to say it. And you're talking about the Africans that were brought to this country were totally stripped of all culture. So, the culture is what ties us together.
It's
the glue.
It's the glue of the community, right?
Exactly. So being stripped of that,
it's difficult to build. I mean,
exactly.
You can't build a community without a culture.
Exactly.
Right?
So, Yep. And so you're talking about a people that were not only uprooted and brought from their homeland to a totally foreign land, they were stripped of their language.
Right.
They were stripped of their religious practices.
Yes.
They were broken up and separated from families, tribes, where they couldn't really even communicate with those Africans that were brought here with them.
Right.
You know, so you're talking about a people that that were totally disrupted. And so, in addition to that, I mean, just considering the brutality and the terror they had to experience, you know, both physically, psychologically,
Yes.
and this went on for generations. You're talking
Yes.
about generations that never saw freedom.
And I would say that we're still dealing with the residue of this crime or this criminal behavior even today, right?
And you know, I wouldn't even say I wouldn't even say residue. We're still dealing with the criminal behavior.
Well, it is.
But,
we are dealing with the criminal.
It's arguable, but there's some things that really show that we're still dealing with the behavior in many ways.
Without a doubt. Like, you'll never get that argument from me that we're not dealing with it.
Right.
However, it looks very different today.
Yes.
You know, it shows up today as kind of very covert. Do you know what I mean? But it's still the same mentality that drove this criminal behavior.
Right.
Because, I mean, let's face it, right? Let's fast forward to today. We're, you know, post-slavery, yes, but we're living in this country, right? You know, it's very kind of eclectic because of this crazy history that kind of built it.
Yes.
Which is just interwoven into the fabric of the culture of America.
Yes.
Right. You know, but here we are. You know, I'll be honest with you. I refer to racism, Michael, as America's cancer. Right? I refer to it as America's
very
cancer.
Well said.
Yeah, because we know we need to find a cure. And the longer we allow it to fester, the sicker we all become. America did profit economically from chattel slavery, right? But right now, you know, America is referred to as one of the richest, but one of the sickest countries in the world, right? We're leading in cancer and obesity, diabetes, heart disease, right? Every 36 seconds, someone will die in this country from heart disease.
Wow.
Every 36 seconds.
Wow.
And what we now know is that all of these diseases are linked to sugar. Right? Sugar and tobacco, but sugar is a main contributor to these diseases.
Diet in general, but sugar is a major factor or major cause.
It is major, and I'm gonna tell you why I want to point that out. The three industries that America profited from off of slave labor was cotton,
right,
sugar,
right,
and tobacco.
Yep.
Right? So 2 out of 3 of the industries that were responsible for America's wealth is now responsible for America's deaths.
Yes.
That is freaking profound. Right?
Right. It really is.
Right.
You know, that whole connection
it really is. It really
crazy.
is.
You know, what's interesting to me about that whole dynamic, even when we talk about sugar or cigarettes, I think about, like, when we were coming up, a lot of the information just wasn't there.
Right,
you know,
that's true.
If we could go and do research and probably get the information, but just it wasn't nearly as easy. We had to really do some digging.
Right.
But now it seems like, the information is at the tip of your fingers. You can look up the health information on anything, be it tobacco, fast foods, etc.
Right.
But and me personally, I thought, like, man, if people just had the information,
Right.
they would make a change. You know, this is all they needed was the
Right,
information.
right.
But, you know, much to my surprise and I would say even dismay, you know, people, it doesn't matter for a lot of people. They even with the information, if you give them the information or even with it at their fingertips, this is still going on. The sugar intake, the junk food intake,
you know,
etc.
that's deep what you just said. That we can have the information, but sometimes for, you know, especially for Black people, the information alone is not enough, right? But sometimes if we can see that information through a historical lens, it can make a difference. If you don't understand the origin of a thing, your enslavement becomes your new reality.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we'll even fight to keep it because that's all that we know. Right? And in fact, we'll wrap ourselves up into this new reality.
Right.
We'll get ourselves all wrapped up into it, even if it means even if it's causing our own destruction.
Right.
Right? And unfortunately, that's what we see happening today. Right? Now, how many people you know will fight? Now, you and I, we laugh about it sometimes, but people will fight you over their addictions, over their sugar addictions and their food addictions, especially their food. Listen, we know this for a fact. Again, we may laugh about it, but it really isn't. It's a real thing, real talk, right? People will fight you over their food, their sugar addictions, right? All of that.
Well, those are real addictions.
Those are real addictions.
Yeah, I mean, just like a drug, you know, there's pleasurable sensations from food, especially sugar.
Yeah,
so,
but the thing that makes this unique, and as I always say, we got to look at things through historical perspective, because we are fighting for something that we don't even realize is part of our enslavement.
Right.
And that we're not making the connection that it comes from a slave past.
Right. And you would have to really see that conceptually, and I think unless you learn the history and be able to compare and understand, okay, this is what happened, and relate it to the day, or compare it to the day and say, okay, now I see this whole picture. Right. So you get more of a conceptual perspective of it from there.
But that's what we're trying to provide now. That's what we're saying. We're making that connection. People need to understand sugar was built off the backs of enslaved Africans. Right? Yes. This is an industry that made America rich.
Yep.
That we suffered to do that. Yep. And it is the same industry that is causing our death.
And enslaving us today.
Yeah. And so we need to be able to tie those, make those connections and make those ties. But you cannot make those ties unless you understand your history.
Right, that's true.
And that's our point.
That's true.
Right? That's the point that we're making. So let's talk about it.
Yes.
Right? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about sugar.
Yeah.
All right, Michael. So my first question to you is, can we even consider, I mean, we've been talking about it as a food, but what I've noticed about sugar is the more you consume, the more you want to consume, almost like a drug. Right? So that's my question. Is sugar even considered a food, or would we consider it a drug?
Well, that's a great question, and I would definitely say sugar is definitely not a food, and should be considered a drug. But of course, as we know, there's big money in it, as you stated earlier, 76 billion going on. So when you have that type of money, you can pretty much paint the marketing narrative how you want. So even though they call it a food, technically it's not a food, because when you consume sugar, it actually takes or pulls nutrients away from your body. So when something has that effect, it's called an anti-nutrient. And so sugar is actually what we call an anti-nutrient. So because it has a nutrient decreasing or nutrient pulling effect as it goes through you, because of the acidity it adds to your system. Your body has to use its alkaline minerals, such as the calcium, magnesium, potassium, and these alkaline minerals that it stores in your bones, joints, organs, teeth, and everywhere those minerals are stored, it pulls away. And that's why those areas begin to weaken on people who have high consumption of sugar, because your body's constantly trying to save you from that toxin. Because if people understand what happens to diabetics when that sugar level goes up, if they don't get that sugar down, which their body's not functioning properly, they could go into what's called a diabetic coma. And high sugar in your blood can cause that. So your body, when your blood sugar goes up, your body literally panics and say, I got to get this sugar down. And if it can't,
it's trying to save you.
It can be dangerous. So
I'm so glad that you went into that kind of detail, and you were actually ahead of me. That was great that you answered that, because I was going to say, everybody at this point knows that sugar's bad. Like, everybody knows that.
Yes.
Right? Like, who doesn't know sugar's bad? We know. But most people don't understand why.
And
to this extent.
yes.
Like, they don't understand what's happening on a cellular level when you are eating sugar. So I'm so glad that you went into that kind of detail to show you what is really happening on a cellular level.
Well, the severity of it is what people basically miss. They hear that it's bad, but they don't really get the details of why it's bad, and they don't have the conceptual understanding of what type of damage it's doing to your body.
I think what most people do is just associate sugar with weight gain.
Yes.
But that's it.
Yes.
But they're not associating it with the kind of destruction that is happening internally. It's more than just weight gain. There's a lot more that damage that's being done internally that we can't see. But we can begin to feel later, unfortunately, a lot of times when it's too late.
I mean, as you said, it literally damages you on a cellular level. It destroys your mitochondria, which are the energy cells within your muscles and organs, where your body actually goes to produce energy. So you're talking about sugar. It destroys those cells, as well as all of the other things that I just mentioned. And there's numerous other. There's a whole long list of destruction that sugar actually causes. And we can literally have a whole show and probably not even completed in one show of the damage that sugar does to your body. So really people need to understand that it's not just a light thing as simple as, it'll cause me to store more body fat. It's much worse than that.
And I just want to, and I'm going to ask you a couple more questions about sugar, but I really want to, because our focus is, on Black history and the relationship with sugar, and I want us to make that connection. We talked about these illnesses that are really leading in this country, but we were talking about everybody. Like, we talked about obesity and cancer and heart disease and all of these things, but how does that relate to Black people specifically? Like, where do we, because I don't know if you've ever heard this this terminology that, when white America catches a cold, Black America catches pneumonia, right? So, meaning that everything is always worse for us. So my question to you is, in relation to that, how does that statement fall when it comes to these diseases that we were talking about, Black people and sugar? Like,
I mean, of course, it always seems that whenever you narrow those statistics down demographically in respect to Black folks, we always tend to have it worse.
Right.
And I believe mainly because of our overall economic situation where we don't have access in a lot of areas.
Multifaceted.
It's multifaceted.
But the point is,
it's multifaceted.
It's multifaceted.
And, yeah, and because, you know, as I said, we tend to not eat as healthy overall and eat more junk food, especially sugar,
which we're going to circle back.
That we spoke
still
about.
On topic.
Yeah, we suffer more from those issues such as heart disease and cancer and diabetes.
Right. So overall, you know, yes, this is a problem in America overall.
Right.
However, within the statistics of this country,
yes,
it's worse amongst African Americans.
Right.
Correct. I just want to make that
clear. And then another
clear.
aspect is we tend not to go to the doctor as much.
Another conversation.
Yes, which is a whole other conversation.
It's multifaceted as to why. That's a show in itself.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out
Right.
that I just wanted it to be clear.
Yes.
That we're leading. Even
In
though
those-
even though these are leading diseases overall in this country, we're the, you know, although we're the minority in this country, we're still leading in those diseases. And for African Americans, I believe that heart disease is number one, right? And then cancer is number two.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make that clear.
Sure.
Right. So that we know what we're talking about here.
Yes.
But still on topic. We're still talking about the sugar.
And that's in addition to those other you know, chronic illnesses that we deal with as well.
Right. But we're still talking about sugar, and the sugar is one of the main culprits. But here is something really interesting. I think that part of the problem, a part of the challenge, is that sugar is not what it used to be. It's in everything. And I think that and I'm not, you know, some things are obvious. Like if you're going for a daggone Twinkie right now, or you looking for some Snicker bars and stuff like that, we can't cover you, okay? But I'm gonna speak for the fact that sugars aren't that obvious anymore, and I've heard you refer to them as sneaky sugars.
That's right.
In other words, these are sugars. Sneaky sugars are sugars that people may think they're doing the right thing, or they may feel like, oh no, I'm not eating no sugar daddies or
candy or
Reese's. I'm not
right.
eating
I don't drink
candy.
sodas.
I don't
eat junk food.
Right. So I'm good. But we
Right.
want to talk to you about sneaky sugars. Okay, those are sugars that you don't realize are sugar. So give me some sneaky sugars.
Well, it's not that people don't realize that they aren't sugar. I think it's
it's been marketed.
Well, let me say, in some products, they kind of don't pay attention because they thinking, oh, this is fine, you know, because of what it is. And then other products, people thinking, oh, it couldn't be that bad, even though we know it's got a little sugar, but it's healthy.
I also believe, Michael.
Yes.
I'm not trying to let people off the hook. However, I think there has been a serious marketing campaign to make people think that certain things are okay.
Oh, no, I agree. Yeah. So let's talk about sneaky sugar, salad dressings. A lot of these low-fat salad dressings, what they do is they take the fat down and bump the sugar up. And people are thinking, this is low-fat and I'm eating healthy.
They use buzzwords.
Yeah. Or when you go out to restaurants, you get these, vinaigrette, these sweet vinaigrette type dressings.
Sneaky sugar.
Sneaky sugar.
How about smoothies?
Fruit smoothies.
When they go out to these places, I don't want to call names out because
exactly.
they don't want to do that.
Right.
But you may go to these places that consider themselves smoothie places.
Yes.
They're putting extra sugar. They're not just giving you fruits for your smoothies. If you're going to have a smoothie, you're better off making your own smoothie.
Yep.
Don't go out to these places thinking that because they're putting sugar.
They add sugar
syrup.
to those. Yes, syrup or what they say cane sugar, but it's the same.
Sneaky.
Yes.
That's sneaky sugar.
Exactly.
Give me another sneaky sugar.
Just in sauces and ketchup, pasta sauces.
Yep.
If you look in those sauces, and often when Cheryl and I decide to do a pasta sauce dish,
Ooh.
it's really hard to find a good pasta sauce.
We're in the aisles
that
like, okay, we can't
have
do that.
low
Can't do that.
that have low sugar.
Right.
Most of the time, you look at these, and they'll have it broken down to 6 grams per serving. But when you look at it, it's got 10 servings in it. That's
Right.
a lot of sugar
Right.
in that one jar.
Right.
So you look at those sauces and ketchup is notorious. It's really high in sugar. So those are 2 other items with
I'll
sneaky
give you
sugar.
another one, sneaky sugar.
What's
They're
that?
in your lattes.
Oh, the
those
designer.
designer
That's right.
coffees
That's right.
that you have, right? That's marketed as being chic
Yes.
and all of that. So
And they are loaded.
Oh my God!
And they are loaded.
So our coffee, Starbucks. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. But
oh, they know. They know they loaded up with sugar
Right.
on top of that caffeine.
right. So the point is sneaky sugars. Sneaky
Right.
sugars. These are sugars.
And let me
You got
add
another
one more thing.
You got another one?
The energy drinks.
Oh my God.
The energy drinks,
right.
which are glorified sodas.
Right.
They're just
right.
glorified sodas.
Energy
They gotta
drinks.
they just bump the caffeine up in those things, and
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
So don't fall for the okie doke, as they say.
And alcohol.
Alcohol.
Alcohol,
Yes.
sneaky sugar.
Yes, alcohol, wine. First of all, alcohol is a sugar.
Right.
But when you do the mixed drinks where they add the fruit punches and
Right.
and all of those sweet additives, you're talking about a sugar bomb. And the same thing with wine. Yeah, sure, it's fermented grapes, but it's sugar. It's fructose and alcohol sugar.
So I'm just gonna jump in right now for if we stepping on some toes and you find just something just raising up in you, just take a deep breath. Remember we talked about some conversations are not comfortable,
Right.
but they're necessary.
Right.
We talked about how we sometimes we want to fight, right, for our own
Yep.
to our own demise. But we got to talk about it, right? We got to have these conversations. We know that we're stepping on some toes, but listen.
Right.
Listen. When we know better, we do better,
Yeah,
right? So we're
yeah.
just talking about, what you do with the information, that's on you. But we're just giving you the information, and we're letting you know where it came from, and so that we can all make the shift, because we're concerned about our lives. Right? We're concerned about our lives.
That's
Those
right.
statistics are real, right? So we want to turn that death toll around. And a lot of times, if you don't know, we don't want you to be a contributor to your own
Demise.
destruction.
Yeah.
And you don't even
Yes.
know, right?
Yes.
As you're sitting up and drinking your lattes and your designer, whatevers. We
Yes.
just want you to be aware, okay?
Yeah.
So there's that. Now let's
So when
talk
you have the
about-
information, it makes you responsible
it makes
for that
you
information.
responsible for that information. Do with it what you do the right thing.
Right. Right.
Do the right thing.
Right.
Let's keep talking. Okay, so we talked about sneaky sugars, right? But those are the really sneaky ones that you really don't know. But this sugar is in everything. So let's continue. Where else do we find sugar in that people are not aware of? Processed food?
Yes, that means foods that have been taken from their natural state and formed into something else, meaning it didn't grow that way. So when
Okay.
you're riding by the farm, you don't see hamburger buns, right?
Right.
So it has to be processed and broken down. So the further it's removed from that natural state, meaning they've stripped it of its natural nutrients, fiber in most cases, and added a bunch of additives to it. Most of them are usually chemical toxins,
Right.
to turn them to affect the flavor, the shelf life, and the taste quality, et cetera, et cetera. They add a whole bunch of stuff to this. So that said, all of this process creates what you're essentially eating is basically a sugar.
Okay.
So when you eat a slice of bread, it converts to sugar just like regular sugar does in your body.
Okay. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit.
Okay.
Or you know, because Michael, the nutritionist, right? So he's going deep into the explanation, which I appreciate, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that appreciate it. However, this could be new information for a lot of people, and that could be a little overwhelming.
Okay.
To simplify what you just said, processed foods.
Yes.
You know, anything that's canned foods.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of canned foods. You know, a lot of the frozen foods. Pretty much just about everything in the grocery store, right? Something.
Yeah, most of the grocery store is processed to some extent.
Processed food. If you didn't grow it, you know, or if it's not naturally grown, if you don't go to the farmer's market and, you know, you could just pick it up and whatever, then more than likely, if it's packaged, it's processed, correct?
Yeah, but let me just clarify that. This is not to say that everything processed is bad.
Gotcha.
There's an extent to, as I explained,
can you give us a simple way for them to identify what's good?
Well, ideally when you look on the ingredient list and it has very few ingredients, and you can understand most of the ingredients, all or most of the ingredients. I mean, we understand if we see eggs, you know, flour,
but when you start
the basics,
names like yellow
so,
number 5, 6, and 7,
and sodium benzoate and all of these, you know, additives and preservatives, and it's got this long list of conditioners and preservatives.
Then they have gone into ultra.
Yes, they've gone into ultra processing.
There you go.
And so I'll give you an example. Like oatmeal is processed in a bag. That's considered processed, but it's minimally processed. You know, they just broke it down and put it into a bag.
Right.
But now, when you see the refined little bags with the sugar and cinnamon and okay, that's a next level of processing because they've broken it down even more. And they've added a bunch of sugar to it and some flavoring. And they do add artificial flavoring to that. So now you got a different level of processing. So now you're going into the ultra processed stuff.
So I just want to, you know, again, kind of simplify it for people who may be listening to this information for the first time and they just need it to be really simple, right? Like what can I do right now? So basically you're saying just again, processed foods, there's levels to your processed foods, right? But basically a good gauge for you is to make sure that there's a minimum amount of ingredients. When you go and you look at the ingredients and you see this long list, more than likely it is really processed, right? Like to the point where you might want to stay away from it, and make sure that you can recognize the ingredient list. Make sure you can recognize.
Let me add one more thing too, as a rule of thumb. Basically, you want to stay away as much as possible from canned foods. Right? Because canned foods, whether it's canned beans, vegetables, or whatever, they don't have a lot of nutrients. That's dead food.
Wow.
It's processed where it's been heated most times, and it's sitting in that can where all the nutrients and enzymes have died off. So it's mostly dead food, right? Also, you want to stay away as much as possible from boxed foods too. I mean, there's certain items, don't get me wrong, that you can eat, but for the most part, boxed food items aren't any good.
So you're telling them the pretty so
boxed and canned foods. Try to stick with. You can stick with like the frozen vegetables. You can stick with, of course, the bag fresh vegetables, bag beans, and bagged rice, stuff like that is fine. But when you get into boxed crackers and boxed bag chips and all of this stuff like that, that's the rule of thumb. Most of the box and bags and canned stuff are no good, with the exception of like canned, if you're going to do tuna or something like that.
Right. I think it's a good gauge, but let's because there's more. Right. So the other thing, because we're talking about sugars, we're talking about hidden sugars, we're talking about things that sugar is in everything that you may not realize. We're talking about the fact that sugar is no longer just a candy that you can identify. So
Or the white powder
or the
form.
white powder form of
Right.
sugar. Sugar's not going to look like that anymore. It's next level now. It's
Right.
next level.
Because of all the processing.
Because of all the processing. So we just want to make that clear that you don't even realize that you may be contributing to heart disease or diabetes or these diseases. You don't even realize it. You intend to do well and you're not, but you don't know. So that's what this is what this conversation's about, right?
Correct.
So the other thing that is, what about people who are like, okay, I want to get away from soda and drinking bad, I'm going to go to, getting my juices from some orange juice. I'm going to move to some container orange juice or, apple juice or whatever. I'm making healthier choices. What do you have
The
to say
juices
to
versus
those
the
people?
soda.
The juices versus the soda.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people think that is a healthy change, but it's not.
It's healthier than soda, though. Anything's
The-
healthier than soda.
Well, soda is like the bottom of
That's the bottom of the
Yeah.
barrel if you're
Yeah.
still drinking soda.
the soda is just harsh because it has it's got so many horrible things in it. They make
Right.
it, first of all, they make it with tap water,
Okay.
which they do a lot of juices too.
Right.
It's got phosphoric acid in it, which is
Right.
super acidic and super toxic to your body.
I've seen
And
somebody
it-
clean my
and it-
batteries with
it's
soda.
It's,
Got rid of all of the
very
all the
harsh,
acid from it.
and also it's got the fructose corn syrup in it, which is the worst type of sugar
Okay.
for your body, for your blood, for your liver, for your cells. So it's got like a triple bomb in it,
Right.
with the phosphoric acid, tap water, and all the chemicals that come in tap water,
Okay,
as
so
well as the
soda
fructose.
is out.
So definitely soda is out.
But-
And I wanted to paint that picture because for anybody who's drinking soda, it's horrible. But comparatively, when you're talking about fruit juices minus the phosphoric acid, which makes
Right.
soda worse, it's got the fructose corn syrup or the fructose, which is very harsh on your liver and your system as well, and it's doesn't have any fiber in it, which
Okay.
which is basically it's like mainline in sugar.
Okay.
So while it is a little better than soda, you're still not doing yourself any justice by switching to that different form of sugar.
Well, I disagree. I think that that they are doing themselves justice, and that everybody can't necessarily. Some people have to take baby steps. So I want to at least acknowledge the change based on what you just said. With sugar, and I know Michael don't play. Like Michael he's both of us, but Michael is like, listen.
Well, now I painted that picture so that, and I understand what you're doing. You're trying to give people like that step-by-step progression.
Right. Right. No, I want to.
But what I'm saying is that people will think that, okay, I switched to juice, so I'm okay. And so I don't want that misconception or people to rest with that misconception.
And I think okay, so that's fair, right? Well, but there is a progression, and there are steps that people take, and I want to acknowledge the journey.
Okay.
Right? I want to acknowledge
Fair
the
enough.
journey. I think that's fair, right? So if you're drinking soda and you want to make a switch, but you still need, you can't just leave it alone altogether and you're switching to the juice, okay, that's great, but just understand, like Michael said, and we're going to address that in a second, that you don't want to rest and stay there. That's not your last stop. Okay, that's just your way. That's just another, a pull away from the addiction, but it's not your last stop, right? So,
well, let me say this too. Even with that switch in juices, because you do have different levels of juices too, because you have those really, I guess for lack of a better way of describing, the cheap juices that you go like the punches and the color orange juices that are made with what's called high fructose corn syrup.
Right.
Now, when you're dealing with that high fructose corn syrup, you're still on the soda level.
Okay.
Okay, so
Get quality juice.
You're still getting that tap water. If it doesn't say filtered water, you're still getting that tap water. And though we haven't discussed what all the chemicals that are in tap water, it's a mess.
Okay.
So again, that's another level too. You want to get at least a decent quality juice.
Fair enough.
And you can claim the next level step.
Fair enough. So listen, because we, this, like we said, man, we could talk about this.
Right. We can get lost in
this.
this.
It's levels and
Yes.
levels and levels, right? But I want us to stay on topic.
Okay.
Because we got a lot to cover.
All right.
Regarding our diet, regarding our history, all of that. So
Okay.
fair enough. The bottom line is obviously high fructose corn syrup, because you brought that up a few times.
Yes.
That is a big no-no. That's obviously an ingredient that you want to look out for.
Or anything that says corn
Anything
syrup,
that says
because they
corn
disguise
syrup.
names
They
now.
do change the
Yes,
name.
they change
Right,
the name.
They keep.
But
changing.
essentially, it's high fructose
Right.
corn syrup.
High fructose corn syrup, any of that buzzwords.
Yeah.
stay
So
away
what they do is they say, hey, they found us out. We got to change this.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So let's move on, okay?
Okay.
Because we're about solutions here.
Okay.
We're not just about shattering people's world. We're about getting you to the solution.
Okay.
And I'm sure people want to know, well, what do I do? We told them all these things they can't do. But so we have to make sure that we stick to the solutions.
Yep.
So, regarding the solutions, that's what we're on right
Okay.
now. Okay. So I would say, obviously, we talked about one of them is, try to eat as close to fresh foods as possible.
Yeah.
When it comes to your drinks, for example, Michael and I, we pretty much drink water. Like that's pretty
Yes.
much all we drink, and it's not just any water. We make sure we don't drink tap water.
Right.
But, we drink filtered water,
Yes.
but that kind of takes care of all the sugar and all that stuff. But if you're not there yet, that's fine too. But if you want to do juice and you want to get away from your sodas, which you should want to at this point, fresh squeezed juice is the best. Now, let's talk about that, because I know that's important too. Here's my question to you, Mike.
Yes.
When it comes to juicing, there's still confusion around blending versus juicing. As clearly as you can you just share what the difference is between the two?
Well, blending is when you blend the entire fruit or vegetable in a blender. Typically, people use high-powered blender to turn that fruit or vegetable into a juice form. And of course, juicing with the juicing machine, it extracts the fibrous housing of the fruit or vegetable and separates it and just gives you the fructose part of the juice.
Okay.
And so when you're talking about the one versus
Juicing
the
versus
juices
blending.
versus the blending, blending is better.
Okay.
And I'm a proponent of blending because it does give you that important fiber that cleanses your system as it passes through, but it has more of the enzymes as well as the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals that comes along with that fruit. So you're getting the whole package when you blend versus juicing. Again, you're extracting the fibrous housing, which especially in the case of fruits, now you're getting a high sugar solution. Yes, it has the vitamins and minerals and some of the enzymes in it as comparison to the ones you buy at the store, which is better, but you still want to make sure you minimize the amount of even fresh juice you make, because ultimately it's still sugar.
Okay.
And it's still going to, if you overconsume it, it's still going to cause you to store fat and could still have, if overconsumed consistently, a detrimental effect on your system and your liver.
Okay, so take away blending versus juicing.
Yes.
Blending is better.
Yes.
That's your take.
Blending is better.
And if you overconsume juice, even if it's fresh juice, it's still sugar. And
Fruit juice.
Fruit juice.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
If you're going to juice, and you're going to stick with your juicer versus the blender, make sure you juice mostly vegetables.
Okay.
Right? And you can
Versus
add a fruit for taste in that vegetable mix, i.e. an apple.
And we always try to do that. Like we seldom just juice like just vegetables. We always try to mix
well, you mix what they
two.
call a neutral like fruit with it, an apple or a pineapple or something like that to kind of make the taste a little smoother because, most people don't like all vegetable juice. I'm talking about vegetables, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So let's stay on topic.
Yeah. No, I was just referring to not to if you're doing a juice or even some people do juice fast, don't do fruits all day.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay?
Do mostly
because
vegetables.
It's still sugar.
Yes.
Right. So, but I'm glad you mentioned the fast. Another solution is to cleanse.
Yes.
Right. If you want to try to get yourself off the sugar, you can do a cleanse.
A cleanse / sugar fast.
And you will be surprised at how fast your taste buds will change.
Yes.
It'll take it can take a week or less. Like once you start, again, the more sugar you consume, the more you want. And same thing in reverse, the less you consume, the less you want. It is an amazing thing. And then you'll taste how things will start to taste really sweet to you that you were like wolfing down before.
Yeah.
So a cleanse is always recommended. The last thing I want to recommend, two things, just get into the habit of drinking more water. And I think we talked about that. And then also, the last thing is we have a supplement called
5-HTP.
5-HTP, L5-HTP, and it is an all-natural supplement. So if you've tried everything, you feel like you need a little help to get you off of that drug, that sugar drug, this is an all-natural supplement that we have that will help and assist you to get to detox and get off of that sugar.
Right. It really breaks those sugar cravings. It's an all-natural amino acid, as Cheryl said, and we've gotten great reviews from it for clients that have sugar addictions or have had sugar addictions.
And we've got people off their addictions with that supplement.
Yes.
Again, it's called L5-HTP. Thank you, Michael.
Yes.
And again, just go to the links. You can get it on our site, which is www.rhythmrumble.com.
Correct.
Rhythmrumble.com. Okay?
And try a 10-day sugar fast. Just try it and you'd be amazed at how your taste buds change just within that time, and you begin to break that sugar addiction or break it. But of course, the longer you go, the better it is. But just do 10 days and you'd be amazed at the results.
Okay, so we really unpacked a lot, about the sugar and our history. But I just want to expand a little bit more on that and talk a little bit more about Black history and how it affects our overall diet.
Okay.
So when we think about the slaves, right? The enslaved Africans, they worked the fields from sun up to sundown. Let's think about that for a second.
Yeah.
From sun up to sundown. Now we complain about 8-hour days, right?
Yeah,
We're talking about 14, 16 hours in the hot, scorching sun.
No matter what the temperature.
No matter what the temperature.
Freezing, cold temperatures,
whatever,
or hot.
Right?
Yep.
No lunch breaks. There were no lunch breaks, right? There were no
vacation
days.
Sick time.
Right. There was no sick time. There were no unions.
Right.
To fight for you. There were no child labor laws or anything like that. So those kids can be as young as 5 years old and they're out there
working in the field
like a grown adult. Right. There was no retirement. Right. So the elderly worked too. They worked basically until they died. You could work literally worked until you die.
Yes.
And that actually happened often.
Yes.
They would just die right
Yes.
out on the field from pure exhaustion
Yes.
and overwork, right?
Yes.
If we can imagine such a
Yeah.
thing. In fact, I thought it was really, man, it really painted the picture. The Dr. Joy Leary, right? When she talked about how oftentimes these enslaved Africans would work so hard until their muscle literally detached from their bone.
Yeah, crazy.
If you can imagine such a
Yeah.
thing, right? So we just really I wanted to paint that picture and then ask you a question.
Yes.
How important is one's diet and nutrients when your body is being subjected to like really strenuous work and activity? How important are nutrients to your body?
I can't even stress, the importance of nutrients under those conditions.
Wow.
But just to quick analogy, your nutrients are like gas to a car.
I think that's a good analogy.
I mean, it can't operate without fuel.
Right.
And basically,
so imagine not having fuel in your tank and pushing on the gas and trying to go somewhere.
Constantly.
Right.
So you had a condition where they were overworked, undernourished,
right?
And which, of course, made for a disaster. Which is probably why you had occurrences like that, where the muscles literally detached at the insertion points from the bone, because you didn't have proper calcium or magnesium or the minerals responsible for keeping those ligaments strong.
Right.
So everything started to break down and weaken. And they weren't worried about, of course, they just the health or the nutrition of the enslaved Africans. They were just worried about how much work they could get done and how long they could stay healthy and do it.
Right.
So they were in a constant state of malnutrition, as well as muscle atrophy, where their body was feeding off of itself because of lack of nutrients. And just constant stress.
I was just thinking because I know how stress breaks down your tissues.
Exactly.
So imagine that.
So
part.
I can't even imagine, and people just don't think about the intricacies of the sickness that though they were dealing with, and the constant terror that they had to face all day long.
Right.
I can't even imagine what how stressful that was to their system,
and how it wreaked havoc on the body. But yet, and so my next question is, what was, we talked about how important the nutrients are to your body when you're put under this kind of workload and stress. What was a slave's diet? Since this is our conversation, what did a slave's diet consist of? Well,
it was definitely a nutrient deficient diet, because it was mostly scraps from the animal that, back then a lot of the people, they had farms or whatever, but basically they got scrap parts of the animal, such
and what
as
people didn't want.
Yeah, exactly. And what the enslavers didn't eat, which were the intestines and the stomach, and
so the intestines, which we now know as what?
Chitlins.
Okay.
Or the stomach tissue, which was the hog maws, they call them.
Okay.
The pig feet, pig tails. The oxtails, chicken feet, and all of these ribs, exactly. All of the different parts that
really don't have much meat or any nutritional value.
Yeah.
Right. And it was really considered toss away.
Right.
We really can't use this. And this is what these enslaved Africans were forced
and they had to just make kind of a slop soup out of that. They didn't get to have salads and
Right.
starches and
Right.
rice and all this
Right,
stuff.
right.
You got a little ricing grains here and there, but
Right.
most of the time it was just kind of a slop soup
Right.
without with very little macronutrients, as we
Right,
call them.
right.
I'm sorry, not macro, but micronutrients,
Okay.
which are our vitamins and minerals.
Right.
They got the macro, which are the carbs, fats, and proteins.
Right.
A little bit of that, but
Woo, that's
it
pretty
was a
intense.
horrible
That's pretty
situation.
intense.
Yes.
So it's interesting. When you mention these scraps,
Mm-hmm.
right? The chitlins and the
Yeah.
hog dogs and
Mm-hmm.
the pig feet and so on and so forth, because all of these things sound quite familiar.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my next question was
Right.
going to be, how much of this diet, this slave diet, has found its way into Black American diet or Southern diet, as we call it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I mean, when you started saying the
Well,
names, they're very
right.
familiar. So
Yeah.
I would say it's really kind of transferred over.
Yeah. A lot of those eating, a lot of those foods
Right.
and eating habits still remained in our culture today. And especially in the lower income areas, you find a lot of that going on, and some in Middle America too still eat
Yeah,
that.
I think, to be honest with you, yeah.
Well, I mean. I grew up in the lower income area, so I understand that. Back in that area, and I'll just use my own self. When we lived in the hood, so to speak, man, the stores, all the little convenience stores
I
had the
remember
pig,
that.
had the hot sausages and the pig feet, and
I remember seeing them pig ears and stuff
all
in the
of
jar,
the
scared the crap
horrible
out of me.
food. But once we moved to the
Right.
suburbs,
Right.
that food, I didn't see that food anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can through experience say that, yeah, it is more prevalent in the lower economic areas, what we traditionally call the hood. You kind of see those foods being cooked more, and we're exposed to it more. But those foods we have to, now that the information is available, and now that in most cases we can make better choices, we need to, my advice or suggestion that, a lot of these foods we need to really cut out and change.
Well, I'm certainly not going to argue with you about it, about which Black people are eating this food. But I know there's a lot of rib eating going on, and it don't matter what economic status you in.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying.
No, ribs
I
has found their way universally.
It's universal.
But I'm referring to some of the harsher stuff.
I
like,
understand, but I
yeah.
don't. My point, my bigger point is that we all need to take heed. I don't want to give anybody any reason to think that some people aren't still eating, a slave diet, because we all are, to some degree.
Well, not all of us, but
Of course,
a lot of us.
Yes, I understand that, Michael.
Right.
I'm simply saying
No.
that it is part of. It has become part of our so-called soul food diet.
Yeah.
Our Black diet, our Southern cuisine,
as we
whatever you want to call it.
As we transition from the enslavement era to the post-enslavement era, we did progress kind of into the fried chicken, which you can kind of somewhat consider still part of our
It is
a slave diet or slave cooking.
We're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
Let me just stay on point here.
Okay.
So we want to talk about these meats. Okay. Let's talk about because we mentioned it. Let's talk about it. Okay. I know a lot of people talk about, we've been hearing all our life, and we say, pork is not good, pork is bad, don't eat pork, you swining, blah blah blah, right?
Right.
So we hear a lot of that, especially in the Black community. and I think that we say it a lot, we hear it, but nobody really talks about why. Like, why is pork so bad, Mike Jones?
Well, pork is problematic in a number of ways because number one, the pig is a very toxic animal.
Okay.
Or toxic. The pork is a very toxic meat because the pig will virtually eat anything. And when I say anything, I mean it'll eat feces, it'll eat another dead pig, it'll eat a dead whatever, it'll eat just anything, basically anything it finds to eat, it will eat. And their digestion process differs from other animals in the fact, without getting detailed, but they store more toxins because of their shorter digestive process. They digest things a lot faster than any other animal. Meaning, like, for instance, they have like a 4-hour digestion period versus a 12-hour digestion period for other animals, where it goes through more cleansing channels. And so the pig stores more toxins because it has higher body fat. So, and that fat is where we typically store toxins. Even in humans, you know, your fats are the storage cells for toxins. It's kind of a protection mechanism. But pigs store more toxins. And the biggest thing is that pigs carry a lot of viruses and parasites. And one particular parasite that pigs are notoriously carry is one called trichinosis. And this particular parasite is really hard to kill, and you got to make sure like the pork is really cooked thoroughly, because even cooking it might not die if the pork is not cooked thoroughly. And you can get this parasite within you, and what happens when it gets inside the human body, it'll do the same thing that it does in the pig, which is burrow into its muscle, and it will burrow into your muscle and create all types of muscle pain and other chronic conditions, fatigue and other chronic conditions that you may not even understand that it's due to a parasite versus, you know, being something else.
Right.
So you're really subjected to a lot of toxins, possible parasites and viruses that pigs carry. It's just an unclean meat and not worth the risk.
Alrighty then. I asked. No, but it's important, right? Because we always say, you know, don't eat pork, stop swining, but no one really explains the reasons why. So I appreciate that. Let's move on to the next meat, right? What about beef?
Beef. Most of the problem with beef is most of the beef that's grown is conventionally raised beef, which means that it was raised with a lot of antibiotics, as well as a lot of hormones. And they inject cows with something called RBGH, which is recombinant bovine growth hormones, which when you eat the meat, and hormones go into the muscle of the animal, which that's what we consume when we eat the animal, that those hormones go into you. Cooking it doesn't get rid of the hormones. It goes into you, and it wreaks havoc on your system, specifically your endocrine system, which is responsible for regulating your hormone production and regulating hormones throughout your body. And when that's disrupted, it creates a whole slew of challenges within you health-wise. In addition, beef, those hormones are responsible for tumors, cysts, and cancer that develops in your body, as well as beef is a hard to digest meat. So it's responsible for it's connected to colon cancer. In fact, they put it in the same category. Beef, high beef consumption, they put it in the same category medically as cigarettes when it comes to causing cancer. And I'm not saying it's as toxic as cigarettes, but they consider it a carcinogen in the same category. So
you
just understand that.
Also, you know, which is interesting, again, because we're talking about Black history and focusing on Black people. colon cancer is
It's
the leading
very-
cancer amongst African Americans.
Yes.
Correct.
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 So there you go.
Yeah,
Right, so we have
yeah.
a specific, so whereas, you know, yeah, everybody needs to be, but we have a specific responsibility to really reconsider
Yes.
our meat and
Consumption.
our
Right.
beef consumption. Okay,
Right.
that's that. So now, next meat, you know, you mentioned how nasty the pig is, but you know, chickens are pretty daggone nasty too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
let's talk about chickens
uh-huh.
and turkey.
Right.
What's
They're,
the deal
they're,
with
they're
that?
not as quite as you know, nasty as the pig is. I mean, chickens kind of can eat a lot of stuff that's, you know, pretty nasty too. But when you talk about, again, conventionally raised chicken, they have the same issue as the cow or the beef issue. Which is they're injected with hormones and antibiotics, and which I didn't mention on the cow, the antibiotics you can create, which consumption of those antibiotics can create antibiotic resistant bacteria because of all the antibiotics they're getting injected with. So it's kind of like an overuse or overconsumption of antibiotics.
Oh, okay.
And then you have the hormones that can, of course, disrupt your system.
Right.
It's a little less harsh on the digestive tract or in the digestion process because it's a softer meat, if you will, not as fibrous. But, you know, again, when you're dealing with conventionally raised chickens, you're dealing with mainly with the hormones that can be cancerous or create tumors and cysts, etc.
Okay. So last is fish.
Fish is probably
my pescatarians.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say about fish when it comes to that, you want to make sure it's wild caught versus the farm raised fish, because farm raised fish are grown in unhealthy environments, you know, where they're not allowed to swim around, and a lot of times they give them antibiotic feed also.
Oh, wow.
And it's just not a healthy environment when you talk about it. And they also use coloring and stuff on those farm raised fish a lot too. So just stick with the wild caught fish.
Well, you know, you're kind of moving into solutions, which I appreciate.
Yes.
You know, because I'm sure, you know,
People are like,
somebody
what the
out
hell
there.
can I eat?
Yeah, somebody's out there is like, oh hell.
Yeah, this is just a problem with those meats. Okay, we're gonna discuss.
So we did
what
promise
to do about that.
we are solution oriented,
Yes.
right? In our show and in our discussions.
Yeah.
So don't be discouraged.
Right.
We're going to let's go ahead and give some healthy solutions, because obviously everyone's not vegan, everyone's not vegetarian. We
Right.
expect everybody
Right.
to
And you don't
be.
have to be.
We're not.
Yes. Yes.
You know, we're not. So, but there are healthy choices we can make. So let's just go through that really quickly. So healthy alternative for pork?
So
For pork eaters?
there is no healthy alternative for pork. Pork is just seriously, it's just not a good meat. You know, people are tout like, oh yeah, it's got good protein. It's just not worth it.
Even
though.
if
You can
it's
get protein.
organic pork?
Yeah.
I'm sure
well,
they have something
it's still,
called organic
you're
pork
still
now.
dealing with the you know, the toxicity of the pig, because as I said, it stores more toxins.
Right.
And which I didn't mention the last time is because the way they're biologically constructed, they don't have sweat glands.
No arguments here,
So,
Michael. Seriously.
but just leave the
we don't have to validate it. We already did. I haven't eaten pork since I was 15 years old. No arguments here.
Right.
You know, when we know better, we do better.
That's my recommendation,
That's
is
a
to leave the pork
recommendation.
alone.
That's a nice goal.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Let's move. Let's
Try
try
and
to
work
make that a
yourself
goal.
off it. It's just
2023 goal.
It's not worth
Okay,
it.
it's not worth
It really
it.
not.
Okay.
And don't
So-
be a slave to your taste buds.
Don't be a slave to your taste buds.
Yes.
No pun intended.
Right.
Right? Okay, so next is we talked about the beef, like healthy.
Right.
For my beef eaters, what advice can you give them?
So with beef, you want to make sure you get the grass-fed. It says grass-fed. Get the grass-fed version of beef, the ones that are not given antibiotics or injected with the hormones. And you want to be you want to just control your consumption
Okay.
of it. You want to not overconsume beef. Eat
Because it's
sensible portion.
Because it's difficult to
Yes,
digest.
yes. So you want to be sensible about your portion size. Don't get the big, huge 10, 12-ounce steaks. You just eat portion size, 4 to 6 ounces at a sitting.
Right.
And I would recommend not consuming it every day.
Okay.
Change it up, do beef, maybe twice a week. Do your chicken and fish.
Okay,
and,
just
and
pull
switch
back.
it up that
Rein
way.
it in.
Yeah, just
Okay,
just
rein it in.
yeah,
Rein it
just
Beef eaters, rein
reduce
it
your consumption of it and try as much as possible to eat grass-fed versions to
Okay.
avoid the hormones and antibiotics.
Fair enough.
Right.
Chicken and turkey.
Chicken and turkey, poultry, same thing. Just make sure you get the organic versions. There's organic and all natural.
And please, let's clarify the difference, because I'm
Okay.
sure some people are still confused about that.
Yeah, you see organic and all natural,
Right.
which both of them are not injected with antibiotics or hormones.
Okay.
Right? However, the difference in those two come in terms of how they're fed.
Okay.
Now, with the organic, they have to be fed organic food as well.
Okay.
Non-GMO organic food.
Okay.
So it has to be organic throughout the whole growth process.
Okay.
And they have to be grown free range,
Okay.
right? With the all natural chicken, they can be fed genetically modified food, i.e. genetically modified corn. So you can get GMOs even though they can't be injected. You can get they can be fed genetically
no
modified
injections.
food. Just no injections.
That's
right.
what all natural means.
That's what all natural means.
Okay.
And I can't remember offhand if they have to be grown on free range. I think all natural can still be grown in that
Okay,
whole
so
corporate.
let me just ask
or
you this.
raised, not grown,
Let me
but
just
raised.
ask that question, because I don't want to take anything for granted.
Yes.
What is free range for people who don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
that means they're not cooped up all their lives in these chicken houses where
Right.
they raise regular or conventionally raised chickens. Those chickens are just cooped up and fed and have to.
that breaks my heart.
I hate to be graphic,
Oh my
but
God, no,
but free
okay.
range allows them to actually run around
Woo.
and they're in a natural environment.
Right, okay.
So
okay.
that's the difference when you
So
see
whenever
free
we
range.
have these conversations,
Yes.
I'm always like, I'm never eating chicken again. But anyway, okay. So I
Yes.
think we covered this last one. We kind of touched on it
Yeah, the
again,
fish.
but let's just talk about it real quick, and then we're gonna kind of get to our last point, wrap it up. Fish.
Yeah, fish, as I said, it's just making sure you choose wild caught as opposed to farm raised.
Okay.
Farm raised, it's just unhealthy
Yeah,
environment.
what's so
The
horrible
water,
about farm raised?
well, they're raised in a tank where there's not free flowing water. So remember, they're excreting their
pooping.
pooping and everything, and all of them are in there with the poop and the toxicity of that poop in the water. And again, they're bunched up and not being allowed to swim
Right.
and move.
Right, it's just
And
unhealthy.
it's just unhealthy. And again, they're adding coloring and these antibiotic pellets, and so you're still exposed to some unhealthy toxins.
Ooh, I feel like we have been on a journey. Like, we unpacked a lot, right? We talked about sugars. We talked about Black history. We talked about, it's contributing, how sugar has contributed to our diseases and
Yes.
deaths. And we gave plenty of solutions on how to begin to turn it around, by changing our diet.
Right.
So what is, before we wrap it up,
Okay.
give me one more thing that we can do to begin to, again, turn these death tolls around in the African American community.
Well, of course, the most obvious thing is to begin to exercise, right?
Exactly.
Right. We definitely need to begin to exercise more. For those who aren't exercising, I recommend at least incorporating exercise twice a week. to start out and build from there.
And that's been confirmed, right?
Yes.
That inactivity is also one of the leading causes, the contributors to all these diseases.
Right. Inactivity, you know, that goes along with the lifestyle we spoke about. So definitely, I recommend getting that body moving and starting to exercise, right? And when we talk about exercise, Cheryl, Cheryl created a workout called Rhythm Rumble. And Cheryl, can you share with them the inspiration behind the Rhythm Rumble workout?
Yes, I absolutely can. I mean, I was really inspired. Well, this is so appropriate, right?
Yes.
Because we're talking about Black history, and we're talking about culture, and we're talking about health and movement. And so, I was really inspired to create Rhythm Rumble workout because of the historical story behind it, right? I learned about an African Brazilian form of martial arts called capoeira, which was created by African Brazilian slaves. And when these brave souls understood what we all know just instinctively, that freedom is truly our birthright.
Absolutely.
And so while they were out in those hot, fields, cutting down those sugar canes, with their machetes, they were also thinking of a way to free themselves and to think of a form of combat to free themselves. But they knew that they had to be quiet about it, right?
Yes.
So what they did was they hid the combat in a dance. That dance is called makulele. So when you actually see it, you'll see a lot of flips and a lot of, it looks very playful and very jovial, but it has a very duplicitous nature to it because it's a very lethal combat.
Yes.
Right? But again, it had to look like they were dancing and playing. I was so inspired by this story that what I did was I used that as my base to create Rhythm Rumble. The sticks that you see in this workout really represent these machetes that these enslaved Africans used as a form to actually, use in the martial arts. So it's really an amazing workout, and it really speaks to everyone. Of course, it speaks to Black people in a special way because of our history and the connection, right? And I really believe that some of it is really ancestral. When we see how people respond in this workout, we've seen everything from tears to just things that we can't even explain, right? But aside from that, it really speaks to everyone because it encompasses the qualities of resilience and bravery and everything, and that's something that we all want to and need to resurrect in ourselves, no matter who we are, right? And it just kind of, Rhythm Rumble just speaks to that. And we always talk about, as we're working out, it's very transformational because even though we are no longer enslaved in that way, symbolically, we all have something in our lives that we need to free ourselves from, right?
Right.
It could be a vice like sugar, right? It could be a relationship, a toxic relationship.
Or it could be pork.
It could be a job, that's that we really need to release ourselves from. But whatever it is, there's always something in our life that we need to free ourselves from, that we're battling, that we become a slave to.
Yes.
So when you're doing this workout, it is hitting you on so many levels, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, right?
Right.
And when you finish, you're just absolutely transformed. So I was really inspired to create it for those reasons, and it really makes us feel good when we see people doing this workout, losing the weight, transforming not only their body but their mind, their spirit, their life, and just really just coming together, as a result of the workout. And so it is available. We do it in studio, but we also do it, we have online programs.
Right.
And all you have to do, again, follow the link or just go to
www.rhythmrumble.com.
rhythmrumble.com.
That's just like it sounds, RHYTHMRUMBLE
Yes.
.com,
Yes.
rhythmrumble.com.
That is our national brand. We've taken it all over the world, and
Yes.
so we're really excited about that.
Great workout, and trust me, you'll
be transformed.
You'll be
You
transformed.
will be transformed. So yeah. So anyway, we unpacked a lot.
Yes.
Right. We've got a lot covered. You know, I always like to remind people, if you enjoy the show, if there's anything that you heard, right, that was an aha moment for you, or that you feel could benefit someone in some way, share. Share. Like, comment, subscribe.
That's right.
Right?
Like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah.
Leave us any comments about the show. We appreciate all your comments.
Absolutely.
Also, if you have any questions or want to know anything about what we discuss, or you have any nutrition questions, feel free to comment in the comment section, and we'll definitely respond.
Yeah. So let's keep
right.
the conversations. Let's keep the healthy conversations going, family.
Yep.
Okay. So this has been another episode of The Conscious Couple. I am Cheryl Jones.
And I am Mike Jones.
All right. And
All
we
right.
look forward to seeing you in our next show.
Absolutely. Peace and blessings, family.
Peace and blessings.